Free from the law, a happy condition. Jesus has bled, and there is remission.
Really, if you go away not a new covenant theologian, that won't be the end of the world. But if you die without Christ, that will be the end of more than the world. It will be the end of eternity.
Cursed by the law, and bruised by the fall, grace has redeemed us once and for all. Once and for all.
Just when you thought it was safe, a band of brothers with a mission, proclaiming a more accurate way, reforming the reformed, edifying the saints, and answering the mockers, scoffers, critics, naysayers, and you. You are now listening to the Conversations from the Porch podcast.
Good evening and welcome to the second edition of Conversations from the Porch podcast. We're all gathered here today. We got Brother Antonio Salgado from Salgado DR Ministries. We've got Brother Christopher Fales. I got it right this time. He's in the house. And, of course, we got the Kraken, Justin Gardner, one of the members of New Covenant Baptist Church. And we just want to thank you guys for tuning in. We've got a total of, look at this, guys, 3 viewers, now 2. Okay, they're dropping like 5. We're still going to keep going. We got a great show lined up for you this evening. We're going to be talking about recommendations on books and websites and whatnot. We'll have a chance to go ahead and ask the porch. We'll listen to a call at the end of the show just so we can respond to that. And just a little housekeeping just to get you guys started, just to let people know. A lot of people have been asking about where can they tune in, where can they hear the show, and unfortunately we've been having some technical difficulties getting onto iTunes. But today I was just checking, and you can go to Podbean, and you can download the app, and you can get the show there. So check out Podbean. I'll be announcing when we will be able to get the show on iTunes so everyone can get it that way. That does seem to be the most easiest way to access it. Also, just wanted to let you guys know we do have a debate group that we've started. We come from what we call the NCT Porch, and that is a private group for people who are already convinced of New Covenant theology. But we'd like to invite the mockers, scoffers, naysayers, and you to join us on the Conversations from the Porch Facebook group. I see we got John. He just came on. Hey, how you doing, John? He's trying to get his microphone or something. So we're going to have a good show. Also, just wanted to let you guys know that I started a Twitter account. So the Twitter account, you'll be able to follow us. I'll get you some information on that by the end of the show. And also, as always, the Ask the Porch number is 916-399-3878. That's 916-399-3878. And so I'm just going to go ahead and do a roundtable welcome and let you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves and get started kind of. Go ahead. We'll start with you, John, since you just popped in, put you on the spot.
Hey, I'm John Hawkins. I'm pastor for Arbor Drive Community Church in York, Nebraska, and actually been here for about 2 years, and getting ready to start some doctoral work in church revitalization in the winter. So yeah, I'm married, 1 daughter who is 5 months old now, almost 6 months old, and yeah, love it here. So.
Excellent. Anybody else? Go ahead, Chris. We'll let you just get caught up.
All right. Well, Chris Fales, New Covenant evangelist, and just started a church plant here in Escondido. Just started it. So we're calling it the Outpost Baptist Church. And married, 4 kids ranging from 3 years old all the way up to 16 years old. So prayers appreciated.
Brother Justin.
Justin Gardner, also known as the Kraken, as Paul would call me, member of Paul Kaiser's New Covenant Baptist Church, Paul Kaiser and Joseph Jaco. I have 1 kid and 1 that's primed to come any week now. We're down to the last 3 to 4 weeks, so then I'll have both my hands full with children and wife, but graciously we've been able to move recently and also a new car, so big things happening, big things.
Amen. Brother Salgado.
Yeah, I'm Antonio Salgado Jr., husband to my beautiful wife, Kristen. We have 4 children, 3 of our own biological children and a foster son, a Dominican baby that we're praying the Lord to open a door for us to be able to adopt him. I am a missionary to Dominican Republic. We have a church plant here in Santiago de los Caballeros, and I am one of the elders of Iglesia Bautista de Alto Mayor.
Amen, amen. Look how he said that. That was, but it's not like Gallegos. I like that. I like that. No, so let's just jump into the show tonight. We're talking about resources, really book recommendations. The thing I've found is that, you know, being on Facebook groups and whatnot, is that people, when they begin to start to want to understand New Covenant theology, the first thing they ask is, well, what books should I start out reading? Where can I find resources? And I find myself all the time posting links and doing all kinds of things. And so what I thought I would do with this show, or what we would do with this show, is provide something that can say, you know what, hey, these are the first few books that you want to go out and get. Here's some websites that you want to check out, some preachers, some articles. So we're just going to kind of have a grab bag of fun, show you guys some books that we like in particular, give you not really in-depth, you know, overview of the books, but just some simple highlights of some of the books. And let's start with you, Chris. What would you think would be the primary book, if we were all to say, what book do you think someone should start out with when seeking New Covenant theology?
Well, I picked 3 books that were instrumental in my New Covenant development, if you will. But if I was to pick one, and we're going to come back to this later on, if we're going to pick one that I would recommend someone read right away, it would be Blake White's. We're going to be talking about that, but Blake White's book would be the one I'd probably introduce. But for me, when I came from out of Reformed roots, not originally, but when I came to New Covenant understanding, I was a subscriber to 1689, and Four Seeds of Abraham by John Reisinger was very instrumental in helping me understand the whole flow of the Abrahamic promise, who the church is, who Christ is, understanding the covenants better, et cetera, et cetera. But a small book, but very instrumental. I think most people who are New Covenant eventually read this somewhere in the first few years. I think you can actually get this free online nowadays. I believe somebody posted on the Porch a link where you can actually read this online, but you can pick it up cheap from Cross to Crown Ministries as well. But that's John Reisinger's Four Seeds of Abraham. Another book that was really instrumental when I was starting to break away from covenant theology and look at New Covenant theology was Carl B. Hodge's book called All Things New. Now you can get this on New Covenant sites like Cross to Crown. Oh, I can't remember if you can get it on Cross to Crown, but I know you used to be able to get it from New Covenant Media. But he's not a New Covenant guy. He's a dispensationalist. But he does approach biblical theology from a good point when he comes to this book. The title says it all things new. And what he does, he goes through the New Testament and points out what actually is new in the New Testament and shows these are not just things that we are taking from the Old Covenant and spicing it up and renewing it or whatever it is, spiritizing it and then continuing on with it. These are new things. And so he goes through the scriptures of the New Testament and talks about anywhere where the scriptures reference something new, and he talks about that. And I thought that was good for me. It really helped me to understand the wonderful, glorious new covenant that was going on and what was so wonderful about it. The final one is a book that I got hold of a few years ago. Let me lift it. This is so it's where the other books may have helped with understanding covenant, understanding newness. David Gay's book. They're both British guys, you know. David Gay's book, Christ is All, was, I think, the most impactful on the law. And you're getting more out of this than understanding about the law. the Old Covenant law, the rule for believers. You're going to get so much of it. He goes through and he talks about the Reformed understanding and shows how the faults are in that. And then he goes into the scriptures and breaks it down book by book in the New Testament, dealing with Galatians and Romans and Hebrews. So, I mean, you've got a commentary, almost a Bible commentary, New Testament Bible commentary in the back here. And then he goes through and talks about what is the believer's law now, and about 200 pages, I think, you have of footnotes in the back. Okay, so it's about 350 pages for the book, and about 250 pages of notes in the back. So he did a lot of research. The man is a very active man with writing, and I recommend all the stuff. But if you're going to read one book by him, it's Christ is All.
Amen.
Amen. Yeah, he puts out like a new book every week, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
That guy is one of the most prolific writers I've ever heard of.
He does. It's great. I can't keep up with it, but I try. I will say, now that we're talking about Brother David Gay, that if he cranks out books like anybody's business, but you can get all of his materials for 99 cents on Kindle. So if you're worried about breaking the bank and wanting to study New Covenant theology, you can't go wrong with Brother David Gay. Some of his titles include the Essential Sabbath, one that was very compelling to me, and unfortunately I don't have a copy, I keep giving them away, is The Gospel Offer is Free, especially as street preachers and dealing with how we present the gospel to sinners. Is the gospel offer a sincere offer? And it was just life-changing, transforming for the evangelism. And so I would suggest anybody who's street preaching to get that book.
Just want to say, if you're really interested in this book, I would go ahead and spend $10 and get the hard copy because of the footnotes in the bottom. Makes it easier to read than the Kindle. But if you want this Kindle, 99 cents or $10.
Yeah. I mean, most of his books, when I find them to be good, I just order a hard copy of them.
Yeah.
Because the gospel offer is free. I have a hard time. Also on his sermon audio page, that's David H.J. Gay Ministries on Sermon Audio, he is now putting his books to audio. So you can get Christ is All. He's redoing it and making a better copy of it right now as we speak. He also has The Secret Stifler. That's his new book that just came out on Sandemanianism. He's going to be putting that one to audio. The Gospel Offer is Free. It is out there. I believe the Essential Sabbath is out there. The Priesthood of All Believers is out there. The Pastor, What Is It? There's a bunch of great titles that he's really doing a lot of good work. Another one that I highly recommend from him is New Covenant Assurance. For anybody that struggles with assurance, that is a bang-up book, and it talks about how believers have assurance and where our assurance lies. So with that, check him out on Kindle. Check him out on Sermon Audio. Sermon Audio, he's got tons of articles. He's got tons of articles that he's taken chunks of his books, and made them into articles. So there's a wealth of resources out there for Brother David Gay. He also has one that I recommend that everybody who is studying New Covenant theology read, and that is Believers Under Law. You want to pick up that title as well and read that title. We'll just shift gears and we'll see. What about you, John? Do you have any tasty tidbits that you'd like to bring up?
Yeah, so one of the things that I was thinking about when you asked this question is, we were thinking about people that maybe this is a new introduction to New Covenant theology, or maybe it's something where they're not really prolific readers, they're not used to reading theological type stuff. So one of the first things that I recommend is Blake White's The Newness of the New Covenant. It's really short. It's really readable, like big print, which is always nice. But the guy does a great job of breaking down what is new about the New Covenant in very readable, very accessible terms. And so he spends time actually going through all the covenants, the Noahic covenant, the Abrahamic covenant, the Davidic covenant, so on. and then he goes through and talks about the Gospels, the writings of Paul, Hebrews, and then he draws some conclusions on that. So that one is really good. Another one by him is The Law of Christ, the Theological Proposal, and I think this was his doctoral thesis at Southern Seminary under Tom Schreiner, and it's really, really good. He goes through and he spends like 4 or 5 chapters dealing with exegetically with that section where Paul says, to those under the law, I became as one under the law, though myself not being under the law, but being under the law of Christ. And he breaks that apart and helps with that a lot. So this was really helpful for me in understanding what the law of Christ is, how that applies to believers. And then finally, by Tom Schreiner, 40 questions about Christians and biblical law. And this one is not necessarily like a New Covenant theology title where it's breaking down New Covenant theology, but he does a great job of taking 40 questions that believers have about the law and giving concise but very thorough answers on those and helping people understand what the law is, especially the Old Testament law, how that relates to the New Covenant, and so on and so forth. So those were 3 that I found really helpful.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, those are all great books. You guys are knocking down all my books. So, brother Antonio, do you have any?
Yeah, they used all my titles, but no, that's fine. Any of the other books I would just mention, anything by Blake White, anything by David Gay, I highly recommend. But there's a few other things out there. One of my what kind of opened my eyes to New Covenant theology was some early on studying on the law and stuff, and it being a unit. And one of the first books I actually read, which I didn't know what New Covenant theology was at the time, was Charles Leiter's Law of Christ. It's definitely a must-read. I don't have a physical copy. Being a missionary, got lots of Kindle books. There you go. But it's a great book. Does a good job on explaining, interpretation principles, Christ being the key, the new interpreting the old. He does a great job on talking about the centrality of love on a biblical New Testament perspective, not like a wishy-washy non-doctrinal stance, but a very biblical, the case for, love being so important in the New Testament, what Christ taught and the royal law and all of that, what that means. But there's also if you wanted to do some reading on the law and gospel, there's a book called The Law and Gospel. Has 5 different views of law and gospel, and it's had several different authors, but Douglas Moo has a chapter 5. They call it the modified Lutheran view, but it's an NCT perspective on the law and gospel. I think it's an excellent book. It has 5 different views, so it's very helpful if you're trying to work through your views or what you believe. I highly recommend that as well. And actually, if any preachers out there, and you guys preach, one thing that helped me out when I was doing an exposition on Galatians was the Zondervan Exegetical New Testament Commentary on Galatians by Schreiner. I highly recommend that commentary for any guys that study out there. It was an awesome commentary. So.
Okay, I'm going to bring up the elephant in the living room. Who's got the dog? Who let the dog out?
That's me. That's my pit bull Calvin.
You can tell who it is because Antonio's face is the only one that shows up very large. Because every time that dog barks, it's like right there, man.
Let me see if I can shut a window or something.
Man, I was trying to ignore it for as long as I possibly could.
Sorry, guys.
That's all right, brother. That's all right. We'll just make sure you put him in the backyard next time. No. So, excellent book. Just a little bit about the one you mentioned, the Law of Christ by Charles Leiter. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but it is an excellent book. I got it dog-eared and everything else and bookmarked. But some of the features of this book in particular is that he uses tons of scriptures. Most of his footnotes are all just passages of text. So he supports everything that he's saying with the passage of text. You can go and examine it. Also, what's very helpful is he has a section on, when you're talking about the law of Christ, he talks about the lawful use of the law. He goes into, it's to instruct believers using the law today. He talks about using the 10 Commandments in evangelism. So those of you who are way of the master folks and you're wondering, well, what do I do now? He gives a great argumentation for why it is not a necessity to use the Decalogue when reaching sinners. And so I think that would be a great wealth of knowledge. He also has a great section that he has frequently asked questions. He asks everything about tattoos and should I teach my children the 10 Commandments, and just some really good things. Is there a covenant of grace? Yeah, some really good things that he discusses and talks about. And since you guys knocked down a lot of books, I'm over here looking at my cart. I'm trying to pull books out.
Whoa!
They knocked out this one. They knocked out that one. I'm just going to go to. These are the top 3 that I like to hand out to people. Again, it's Abraham's 4 Seeds. I think it's an excellent book, and it makes a great argument again for continuity and discontinuity. It talks about really critiquing basically the covenant theology and critiquing dispensational theology in establishing a proper biblical hermeneutic and arriving at new covenant theology. We have Tablets of Stone by Reisinger, again, the patron saint. It's an excellent book, and it talks about how the 10 Commandments play in God's plan of salvation and how it unfolds into the new covenant. And so, excellent reading that you might want to pick up. Another one, we all know that we all get to the Sermon on the Mount and start talking about what is it that Christ was doing at the Sermon on the Mount. And so an excellent book, But I Say Unto You, by John Reisinger. I mean, he deals with some of the text of what is Christ doing. Is he just correcting the Pharisees? Is he just becoming a good expositor of the Decalogue, or is he actually giving a new law? And so that's something that you'd want to pick up. He makes some great observations when it comes to like Christ and talking about divorce and what that meant when he says, you've heard it was said of old, but I say unto you. And excellent book. Another book, if you're starting to look at New Covenant theology, I recommend highly Gary Long and NCT, Time for a More Accurate Way. After you're finished with Blake White's introductory book and you get a feel of what we're talking about, the basic 7 distinctives of New Covenant theology, I can't recommend this book more. It's coming out of Providence Theological Seminary, and they're now in Tennessee. They were in Colorado, but this is definitely a book that you want to pick up. He just goes ahead and talks about the whole middle way and where there's weaknesses, again, in covenant theology and dispensational theology. He spends a lot of his time with covenant theology. Go ahead, Chris.
One of the things I really appreciate about that book in particular is Gary's look into the history of covenant theology and how it developed and came about. And it's really eye-opening and revealing for those who don't know that, don't understand all that. So that's a good book for understanding the history of how it developed.
Excellent.
Yeah, good stuff.
Let's see. One of my this one, I have to be honest, I haven't read it yet. I just got it about 2 or 3 months ago. The New Covenant and New Covenant Theology by Fred Zaspel. I've heard some really good things about it, and I was just thumbing through it today. And one of the things that I found interesting on it was one of the endorsements, and it says this: "As I read this booklet, my heart sang of God's rich redemption in Christ Jesus our Savior, and more than sing, I was drawn to Jesus Himself. Fred Zaspel, with a theologian's precision and a pastor's sensitivity, unfolds for us the great treasures of the New Covenant. He helps us to avoid the mistake of looking to God through that fading and obsolete glory of the Old Covenant, so that we might more fully embrace the fulfillment which is Jesus Christ Himself. Read this and enjoy the Savior." Who can guess who that's a quote from?
David Gay.
No, it's not David Gay.
Reisinger.
John Reisinger.
Not Reisinger.
What?
the Bidi Anabawale, senior pastor of First Baptist Church of
Wow.
Grand Cayman. Right.
Wow.
Now, I'm not going to say he's a new covenant theologian, but that is who endorsed this book. Yeah, that's what he said about this book. So, excellent book. Just seeing the quote made me say, okay, now I got to put this on the top 10 of my reading list. I got to check it out. Yeah, he gave Zaspel a little bit of street cred for those who are exploring New Covenant theology, I could say. Another great book, hands down, All in the Law, Keeping the Commandments of God. It is by Brian S. Rossner. All these books, New Studies in Biblical Theology, they're making some great books that they're putting out. But this book, it's excellent. When you want to really get to understand the confusion, as he says, Paul in the Law is confusing. You know, are we talking about Paul in the Law? Are we talking about Paul's in the Law? He just goes through it. When he says law, what does he mean by law? He talks about law as law. But the best takeaway that you're going to get from this book, I think, for a New Covenant theologian and for us trying to explain our view of the law is his 3 R's. He talks about that Paul repudiates the law, he replaces the law, and then he reappropriates the law. And what he means by that is he repudiates the Mosaic law. It's a ministry of sin and death. It's letters carved in stone. And then he replaces that with the law of Christ. And then he reappropriates the Mosaic law. And he doesn't reappropriate it as law, but what he reappropriates it as is for prophecy and also for instruction. And he talks about, you know, for prophecy, well, it's definitely the law and the prophets are pointing towards Christ. And then for instruction or wisdom, as he classifies it, we see how Paul uses the law when he talks about, you know, the ox and treading. And what does he say? He makes the principle that pastors ought to get paid. Listen closely, Justin. but it's an excellent book. This is I forget what seminary that he did his talk on this book, but I'll try to post a link to it on the Conversations from the Porch Facebook page. But he does a 5-part series, has all his notes, and it's a great way to introduce you to the book so you have a little bit of background before you go and read the book. Excellent. One more book I want.
I'd say also.
Go ahead.
I'd say also anything from Moo and Schreiner.
Yeah.
If you're into commentaries like Antonio was saying, if you're into commentaries, Moo and Schreiner have both done commentaries on Galatians, or Moo's done on Galatians. I think Schreiner's done one on Galatians too, and then Romans. And both of their commentaries on Romans are excellent, especially when you get to like Romans 7, because they take a different perspective on Romans 7, and then Schreiner comes back and he's like, I wish I could go back and rewrite that book because I've changed my mind on it. But those two guys are excellent when it comes to Galatians and Romans in particular.
Yeah, and they also did. Schreiner has one on Hebrews, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, Moo has one on Hebrews as well.
I'm trying to figure out which one's trying to keep up with the other one.
Right.
There's like one writes a commentary on Romans, and the other one, you know, it's like they're trying to outdo one another there.
Yeah, it's excellent. And then I have one more book that I want to highly recommend. I can't praise it enough. You guys all want to go out and get this book. This is What Love Is This by Dave Hunt. Make sure that everybody goes out and picks up a copy of this book.
Right next to my copy of Prayer of Jabez.
Right.
And then the blood moon comes out and smashes Paul's house.
That book was given to me by a well-meaning church member when I was an elder in another church, and she found out that I was a Calvinist, and she really meant well. She was loading me up with some good stuff, and so I learned how Calvin can't be right because he burned Servetus. So
he was on the road.
Always what it is. It's always what it is.
That's it. That's it. I mean, really, I don't want to go into this whole Dave Hunt book, but that's all that it was. It was like, well, Calvin did this, Calvin did that, so he can't be right in his theology. Yeah, but just for laughs, I put that out there. But now let's shift gears a little bit and talk about.
But in all seriousness, yeah, that was a joke. I don't know who's gonna actually take you seriously there.
Hey, if people don't know that was a joke by now, there's no hope. There's no hope.
Somebody's like writing down blood moons. Who's the author of that?
It's a Hebrew guy, so it's got to be right. So let's shift gears a little bit. We're going to talk about some of the web resources, and some of the preachers that we kind of listen to when we're just driving in our car or whatnot throughout our daily lives. Who are some of the best preachers that preach New Covenant theology that we like to listen to? What's one of the top ministries that you'd say you would either visit their website or listen to, John?
I've found Desiring God to be extremely helpful. Piper doesn't classify himself as New Covenant theology. He tries to avoid some of those labels, but he's New Covenant theology-esque. I think he's mostly New Covenant theology, and one of the things I appreciate about him and his ministry is he's got a very good balance when it comes to dealing with people on both sides of that camp. He's got like dispensational guys, and he's got covenant theology guys that he's buddies with, and the way that he interacts with them, and yet still remains faithful to his convictions, I think that's one of the things that I've found to be really helpful in my personal life and in talking with other guys that don't agree theologically, and being able to extend that grace. And so I really like him. And then Tom Schreiner is a pastor at Clifton Baptist Church in Louisville, Kentucky, and he preaches there along with a couple other guys. He's in rotation there. He's been really helpful to me. So yeah, those two would be those are probably the two that I go to the most. Desiring God just mostly because of the breadth of resources that they have.
Yeah, that's an excellent. I love Schreiner. He has a great series on Galatians. I got caught up over here trying to read in the Facebook group, but Schreiner has a great. I think it's like a 21-part series on Galatians that I recommend anybody try to Google it out there. I'll try and post a link to it. And then what else do we got? Oh, I see what you're saying. Oh no! Unleash the Kraken.
Oh.
Justin got skipped twice. I know, my bad. Here, Justin, let's look at it like this, because I remember you said, Justin, let's get it out. Justin's not a reader, but Justin is an excellent listener. So this was going to be your section, Justin.
I had books ready though, but you took both of my books.
Oh no!
Did we even give him a chance to offer it?
Coloring books
the book
don't count.
conversation?
I didn't want to put him on the spot, put him on Front Street, but yeah. So Justin, here, before I start running off at the mouth, go ahead.
Yeah, well, the books I was going to choose was the Tablets of Stone and then the But I Say Unto You. And you gave the reasons why I would have chose those is because I listened to Christ is All. I didn't read it, but listening to it, the first two, the Tablets of Stone and But I Say Unto You, are good. They're good primers, like the 7 distinctions. If you want to get smashed over the head with theology, Christ is All is a good one to go to. If you want the basics, biblical theology, and just plain words, those other ones give good arguments. But when it comes to the audio, what I wasn't skipped on the first time, but the second time, the audio, I would say Steve Atkerson, or Stephen Atkerson on Sermon Audio, his page really goes back to, I think, like 2008. But he's got a wealth of stuff. And then once you start clicking on his stuff, it's very basic and it's interactive in that where you would think a question and then you hear someone ask that question. You're like, oh, thank God someone asked that question that I was thinking about, and then he'll answer it. And then Shane Kessler, and then his links as well to New Covenant Theology conferences. Huge resources just in those two guys alone, because they put out stuff weekly, and if they don't, I normally message them on Facebook asking where it is. Just because I used to have the luxury of listening every day to sermons, so I caught up to their most current stuff recently, pretty quickly. So those two, I would say, Shane Kessler and Steve Atkerson, especially because they're concise, but they also get in depth.
Yeah. Let's stop there on both of them for a minute. I had them on my list. Steve Atkerson, his website is ntrf.org, and it is New Testament Reformation Fellowship. He has one of the best introductions to NCT available on sermon audio. He has just redid it recently. I think it's a new 6-part series. But I encourage anybody to go check out, I think it's a 9-part or 8-part series, the original one. He did a great job with that particular series. We actually went through it as a church. I think we did that and another series that he's done that I encourage everybody to go out and listen to, and that's Bible Overview. He goes through Abraham all the way to the end of Revelation, and he just does a great job of showing how the Bible is knit together in that series. That's the series that we actually spent the most time on. I think we spent about a year, maybe a year and a half, Justin, I'm not sure. We spent quite a bit of time on that, and so he also has some great resources. All of his sermons, they're not exactly sermons. He does what's called the Socratic method, and so he does a question and answer discussion type format. Every sermon or a sermon or teaching, I should say teaching that he puts up, he puts it up with the PDF, and he puts it up with the PowerPoint, and it is just a great resource for like Sunday schools, people who are doing Bible studies. He's done Romans, he's done Matthew, he's done Hebrews. What are some of the other ones that he's done, Justin?
When it comes to Ackerson?
Yeah.
Oh, if you want to get a good one on marriage, Ephesians,
yeah,
is just will smash you in the face with especially your duty as a husband to not just love your wife, but make her feel loved, and that'll get to the issue of really the new covenant issue. When it comes to old covenant, you could think of the old covenant just telling you to do it, but the new covenant doesn't just tell you to do it, but to have your wife feel that you do it as well. But just go to his sermon audio, just search, just go through it, and once you start listening to, you'll just keep going, because his stuff is so good.
Yeah, he does Lord's Supper as a full meal, or Lord's Supper a holy meal series. Does a lot with New Testament church practice, elder-led congregational consensus, just a wealth of information out there. Christopher Fowles, do you have any comments on Steve?
I've found Steve a few years ago and just have been making my way through his stuff too. Nowhere near conquering the pile of resources on audio as Justin is. Yeah, I've enjoyed his stuff, especially his New Covenant and also his church stuff. Yeah, especially the Lord's Supper as a meal.
Yeah, excellent stuff. We relied heavily on that as we came to the conclusion as a church to practice the Lord's Supper as a full meal as well. Also, go ahead.
And he's fun to listen to with his accent, Texas accent. Texas vernacular.
Yeah, it's Georgia, but yeah, it's great.
His jokes are great.
Georgia. Is he in Georgia or Texas?
He's in Georgia.
Okay.
Now shifting gears, trying to get over.
6 of one, half dozen of another, really. I mean, come on.
It's all the same. It's the South.
We're trying to root out who all the Texas people are, because you know that somebody's going to comment. Yeah. Like, Texas is not Georgia. We are our own country.
That's right.
That's right. But getting closer to Texas, we got Pastor Shane Kessler, Heritage Baptist Church out of Lake Charles, Louisiana. His blog is the Narrow Road blog. So if you search for the Narrow Road blog, great articles in New Covenant theology, great current events all sorts of things. I'm reading him all the time. I've had the privilege of being able to interact with him a little bit on Facebook. He was gracious enough to help sponsor the first year of, Conversations from the Porch. So that was a blessing. We thank you, brother, if you're listening. But he's got some great articles. He does a series on comparing the confessions. He does refuting John Calvin's 3 uses of the law. And one that he just recently did, why Furtick and Challies are both wrong about the law. Yeah.
His Hebrew study is amazing. I wish he'd be able to go quicker through it, but that's not possible.
Right. Who else do we got? Oh, let's talk about Cross the Crown. Chris, do you want to talk about Cross the Crown?
Nothing too in depth. I've enjoyed that ever since I found out they took over basically New Covenant Media. You can get all the books there, and to be honest with you, they have some great prices. You'll notice sometimes they'll throw out sales, $2 a book 1 week. So go to that site, register if they have a email alert so you can get notified on that. But they've also got a lot of great resources, audio stuff, video stuff, and as far as like audio preachers and stuff, I'm going to go back to David Gay. The man, he amazes me. God has just blessed him. I remember talking to him one time, and he said that he never expected to have an impact on this generation with New Covenant theology. He was writing for the generation after he passed away. But God has blessed him so much, his ministry in such a way that he is having the impact now. And he's doing that through not just pumping out books, but also if you go on to Sermon Audio, his websites, you'll find that you can download a 10 to 15 minute devotional Bible study on as he goes through a book in the Bible, or else as he had a series called New Covenant Theology Simplified. So they're very helpful. They're in small chunks, and they're well done and well thought out, and very gracious and kind in the way he presents it. So he's my favorite YouTube audio podcast preacher. There are some sermons on that page there from where he preaches at occasionally at different places. So they're more than 15 minutes long. You can also, of course, find his books there too, his audio books.
Yeah. We had the privilege of doing a conference with him here in the Sacramento area over the last couple of months, and we've uploaded some of his conference messages to our YouTube channel, so you can find him there on our YouTube channel. Brother Antonio had him visit out there. He was blessed to be able to translate for him, and then had a conference over there in the Dominican, I guess it was, or was it Mexico City?
It was actually in Mexico City. I flew over there to translate for him.
Yeah, so and he's uploading some materials and some videos from that. There's just a lot of good stuff. Back to Cross the Crown. Like you said, they merged with Sound of Grace, so you can find every single one of Blake White's books on crossthecrown.org.
And speaking of that, I'm sorry I didn't go through that. The Sound of Grace was a newsletter that was done by Reisinger primarily and others early on in New Covenant movement, and you can go through there and like the backlog of all those back issues, right. And man, are they rich. There's times where I've had some issues and I've struggled through and I couldn't find anybody else. And I said, I wonder if they've got something in there, and I'll look through there, and sure enough, somebody's tackled it in an article or something. So it's a very, very good resource. Good resource.
Yeah, great archive. Then, like you say, if you look for them on YouTube, they've got a great 3-part series on New Covenant theology that everybody should check out, especially if you're new to New Covenant theology, trying to figure out what it is. That would be an excellent resource. Like you said, you get those $2 books. There's tons of $2 books. They rotate all the time. I caught a special where I got Abraham's 4 Seeds, but I say unto you, and Tablets of Stone for $1 a book.
Yep.
We bought 60 of them.
Wow. Yeah.
So it was just a great, sweep. So when you get that email notification, you got to jump on it because they do go away quick. But also one thing I want to talk about was Providence Theological Seminary.
It's on my list.
They used to be Providence Theological Seminary or PTSCO. Now they're PTSTN. They moved to Tennessee. And so it's ptstn.org. You definitely want to check them out. The greatest resource that I feel that they have on their website is by far on their PTS blog. They have the NCT comparison charts. And if you guys haven't checked those out, they're excellent. They compare everything, dispensational theology, covenant.
Yep.
I mean, they go through the whole gamut. And so there's just a wealth. I think it's about 12 or 13 different charts that are up there. Go snatch them up, download them. They're on Sermon Audio as well. They have an upcoming conference that they're going to be doing on eschatology and prophecy that you'll definitely want to check out. That's July 18th through the 21st of this year. That'll probably go up. They have several conferences already posted on their Sermon Audio website, and they have the PTSJ, the Providence Theological Seminary Journal, and so they've got tons of great articles. It's very similar to Sound of Grace, and so just a really wealth of information out there for you guys. Remember to check them out. Those are some of the best places that I'd start out with. And then there's one other guy that me and Justin listen to. I want to see if you can think who I'm thinking of, Justin. I wouldn't say he's NCT, but he's definitely NCT sympathetic. And the stuff that he does on Calvinism and hyper-Calvinism, really, and preaching the gospel. Everyone who is out there street preaching again, or out there in the public ministry, or witnessing to your grandmother, you guys need to listen to him. Who is he, Justin?
You thinking about Rossner?
Nope, not Rossner. No. Come on.
Mm-hmm.
And let me tell you. And he's also doing a series on eschatology.
Oh, you're talking about Tim Conway. He's New Covenant theology, if that's what you call biblical theology, is what I've heard someone say to someone. He doesn't go with the title, but yeah. But before we go on him, because that's a big one, Frederick Sargent, I don't know how to pronounce his name. Sargent. He's got a very good proposal. I think it was like one of his final things. He was in a group of theologians, and it's a really good lecture about if New Covenant theology is a danger or if it's something that we should actually look at. And he does a really good job of it's kind of almost a journal of how he approached it and then came into New Covenant theology and defining New Covenant theology. And he has some really good ones, like the four comings of Christ, where it's displaying the first coming, and then the spiritual renewal in our lives, the giving of the Spirit to us. That's a coming of God and such. But when it comes to Tim Conway, man, Galatians series makes some Reformed people unhappy right there. That will make some Reformed people unhappy right there.
Yeah. No, he does he does a great job. I listen to Conway every week. I drive, and that's who I'm listening to. Is there anybody that's running around in your bonnet there, Antonio, that we haven't mentioned?
Yeah. Man, I just wanted to say again how much I can't recommend enough Brother David Gay, just because he has so many different kinds of articles.
Is he paying you guys?
No.
Are you guys getting? How am I not getting in on this?
The man is a machine. He writes a book about every 48 hours. I mean, he's just a machine. He has all kinds of good stuff. Any questions you got, he probably has an article on it. NCT. Is NCT a new thing? He has all kind of articles. But also, someone that wasn't mentioned is Brother Jeff Walker. His name's spelled funny. It's Jeff, Geoff Walker, but of in-depth studies. He is an awesome, knowledgeable, humble brother, and he's so accessible. If you watch his videos, if you go to in-depth studies, he throws his Skype name out there, his Skype info. He throws his phone number out there. I mean, he's very accessible. Like, anyone has any question, call me. I mean, Brother David Gay, too. If you get a hold of him on Facebook, he's very accessible as well.
That's IDS.org.
Yeah.
IDS.org. Yeah.
That was my bad. I don't know why I overlooked him, because actually, Jeff Walker was early on. He was the one that I found because it was really hard. It was real scarce where I was looking and turning over rocks and trying to not get bit by scorpions. And his website was a great resource back then. And it's I still frequent it from time to time. But yeah, I completely overlooked it. Didn't want to do that. Yeah.
He has a lot of good videos. He has a lot of good videos with that Honeycutt brother. David Gate's been on there a few times. There's not what I did. I don't know a lot of Spanish speaking. If there's any Spanish speaking listeners out there, there are some resources in Spanish. Blake White's book, the What is New Covenant Theology, the introduction, that's available in Spanish. But there's not a lot of other stuff out there for Spanish speakers. Me and the other elder at our church were working on a portion of Christ is All for David Gay. And there's some brothers in Mexico that have some stuff going on, some NCT resources. They're translating some books, the Blake White Law of Christ, Abraham's Four Seeds, with one brother that helped translate the Greek to the Spanish in one of the Bible translations. And so there's some stuff coming out soon, but there's not a lot of stuff out there in Spanish right now. But that's kind of one of my desires, is to try to get a website going and offer these resources to the Spanish-speaking world. Like in our country, for example, we're the only NCT guys in this country that I know of right now. So it's I know Lord's a lot of people are curious about NCT. The Lord's definitely doing something in Latin America. So I'm hopefully going to be working on that here in the near future, working hard on getting some of those resources available out there.
Amen. You like the voice of one crying in the wilderness, the forerunner.
Something like that.
Can we expect the podcast to be English subbed and dubbed by you sometime? Spanish subs right at the bottom.
Right. Excellent. So yeah, I get Tim Conway again, honorable mention.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's.
Does he have the website? I'll be honest. Is that him?
Yes.
Yeah.
I want to make sure we mention the website so that everybody can go check him out.
YouTube channel.
Yeah, he's got a lot of stuff from a lot of clips from Paul Washer in there. He is also New Covenant, as far as I can tell.
Yeah,
there's been don't tell the reform.
He's also very terrifying. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, really good stuff. Yeah, speaking of Paul Washer, there's been some debate. Is he really New Covenant or is he New Covenant sympathetic? I don't know. I do know that he wrote the foreword to this book. That's what I do know. And when you hear some of the clips and how he talks about the law, I would definitely say we are in agreement in that position. He's definitely not going to agree with covenant theologians or dispensationals in that position. So, however you want to label him, good, solid brother. Glad we have him on our side.
They hope for the pan theory.
Along with the Beatty, let's not forget. Along with the Beatty.
Yeah, but the Beatty's not terrifying, man.
I know.
Washer, I went to a youth conference. I was pastoring some youth, and we went to a youth conference, and they had him speaking, and it was like a 4-day conference, and he spoke every night. And in the middle of preaching, this kid gets up to walk up and go out, and he stops preaching. Goes, "You there? What are you doing?" And the kid turns around, and he's like, I was gonna go to the bathroom. And he's like, "You've got something more important to do than hear the word of God preached. You should have done that before you came in here. Go sit down." And the kid was like, "Oh my!" I was terrified. Like, I'm a new believer. I'm like, "Who is this guy?"
The kid's all like, "My weapons are ready anyways."
Yeah, no need. I don't need to go anymore.
I just beat my chest anyways. Thank you much.
I was just kidding. No,
he ended it. He ended his sermon with he was preaching. He ended his sermon with Philippians chapter 2. At the name of Christ, every knee shall bow in heaven and earth and under the earth, and every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. And he says, you can either willingly bow your knee now, or you can have your knees broken to have you kneel before the one holy God. And then he goes, you have been warned. And he just like drops the mic and walks off. And the worship team didn't know what to do. They were like, how do we follow that up, man? Do we come up? I don't know.
Do we play him out?
There was like, I know, right? Do we let's everybody stand up and smile? Like it was weird, man. It was awesome. It was so powerful. Just,
Wow.
yeah.
Praise
He did
God.
that in another sermon, and as he's walking off the stage, everyone starts to clap. He turns around and says, "Don't do that." It's like, wow, the guy's hardcore.
Right,
Yeah, he
right.
is.
Definitely the sermon where he just stared at people for a while.
The
Whoever made
Babylon
that
Bee sermon.
was amazing.
I'm talking to you.
No, the one where he's just like,
You guys are getting paid by David Gay. I'm getting paid by Paul Washer to drop some names in here.
drop the mic.
Right. Yeah,
This is great.
Okay, so we got about another 5 minutes for the show. I'm just gonna wrap up, do a little bit more housekeeping. We were gonna try and get to an ask the Porch clip. We might have to get it into the next time on the show. But so Austin, brother, if you're listening, you're gonna have to wait till the next show for me to get your question answered. Just having a really good
cliffhanger.
Yeah, that's right. It's something for you to come back for. But speaking of something for you to come back for, we're going to talk about a few more things that we have coming up. We wanted to talk about, let's plug this really quick. We were going to talk about progressive covenantalism in this episode. We just kind of rambled on a little while. We might try to pick it up at another time. This is a new book. It's out by Wellum, and I believe it is Brent E. Parker. And so it's basically progressive covenantalism. They define themselves as not NCT, but we were going to discuss some of their definition and why they decided not to call themselves NCT. But there's articles by Schreiner, Wellum in there. It's just a really, really good book. On our NCT Porch group, we are having a discussion series going on. Right now, we're on Chapter 2. We just began Chapter 2. Some of us are still finishing up Chapter 1. I won't mention any names myself, but we're moving on to Chapter 2. If you are NCT and fully convinced, we encourage you to join our Facebook group and join in the discussion there with that particular book. And so it's just going to be really good reading. We'll really get down and dirty and see kind of where we have our objections. Christopher Fowles already pointed out that in Chapter 3, it's going to make some of us cry when he starts to talk about the patron saint, but that's an Easter egg. We'll get there when we get there. We're also going to be going through the little black book that Chris showed at the beginning of the show. And so, yeah, Blake White's book. Go ahead and say something, Chris.
Something? Oh, all right. That was TV. What is covenant theology? An introduction. And again, we said this is a great book to give out to someone who's curious. He goes through his 7 points or 7 distinctives of new covenant theology, and it's done briefly and concisely, and it's a every man's read type situation. Good stuff.
Right. That's probably one of the most frequently books I give out as well. So we're going to be taking some time through the shows to go through each distinctive individually in the future. So we'll just work through the book over the show. We're also in our next upcoming show that we're going to be talking about the 7 distinctives of New Covenant theology, and then following that we're going to go into open air preaching. That has to be a hot topic among many of us who are, as you know, are all street preachers. Some of us aren't. We're going to be able to glean a good perspective.
Some of us aren't.
Yeah.
One of us aren't. Like,
One of us aren't.
I saw on the screen. Like I saw you. I know where I am on your screen because you look like right down at me, man.
but it'll be good to bring a balance to the force, so to speak.
Don't mind Paul. He's very straight to the point.
Yeah. So we'll be talking about that, and really.
I'm talking about you, John.
Also, let's bring it back. Let's bring it back. We got a couple more minutes. We got 6 viewers that are still hanging in there. what we're going to be discussing is a new covenant approach, really a biblical approach, and looking at the apostolic preaching of the gospel, and what do we see in the preaching of the gospel or the public proclamation. We're going to talk a little bit about the use of the Mosaic Law in evangelism. Yes, do we use it? No, don't we use it? And so that's just some of the things that we're going to be talking about in upcoming shows. I also wanted to talk about something that was put out by the Providence Theological Seminary Journal just recently. It's an article called Questions Surrounding New Covenant Theology, Popular and Doctrinal. And I believe there's about 12 different objections that people make, or 12 different considerations when considering New Covenant theology. So every now and again, we'll lob out one of those and just use that as a discussion topic. But mainly...
Confessions. Sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah. So
confessions.
Yes, yes.
Westminster.
Westminster.
I had something in my throat.
Yeah. So again,
it was a bad taste.
Thank you guys for viewing and listening to us rant and ramble. We remember to try and check us out on Twitter. Check out the Facebook group. That's Conversations from the Porch podcast Facebook group. Join there if you don't aren't fully sold on New Covenant theology. You want to know more, or you just want to rant and object. We're bring the fire, because we're willing to answer you and take all comers. So remember that. If you are NCT and you are fully convinced and you want to talk about some of the deeper things of New Covenant theology, we all have a lot of in-house debates. You know we do. We can talk about the law of Christ. We can talk about active obedience and all those fun things. We can do that on the NCT Front Porch. We try to do it in a friendly discussion and let it be known that most of us will talk about the law of Christ. We do believe that, as we should say, we concur with Brother David Gay on that position.
We're trying to wrap it up, Paul.
I know.
Open that can up.
Let's not get started. I hear
He's checking his bank account every time he says it.
I hear the porch. I hear the roof of the porch creak.
Yeah, Paul's like, let's wrap it up and open up this box here.
Hey, Paul, Paul, did you put the phone number out there for the people to call in?
That right now, yeah. That phone number right now, it's just a leave a message line, and we'll get to you as we get to you. Hey, we didn't get to the first one tonight. Yeah, that's it. That's right. Ask the Porch. It is 916-399-3878. That's 916-399-3878. Our Twitter account, I just created it this evening. I'm trying to remember what it is. I think
that's how you know it's good.
Yeah, right.
Conversations on the porch or from the porch.
No, it wouldn't fit Conversations of the Porch. I think it's something completely different. It was like NCT Porchcast or something.
I got you.
Yeah.
I just linked it in there in the chat, and I'll link it in the YouTube as well.
Just want to give a shout out to Russ Roberts from the Porch, who is listening live to us.
Excellent, Russ. Yeah. Hey, Russ.
He says, somebody silence that dog.
Sorry, guys.
Kayate, is that how you say it?
Yes.
Burrito.
Yeah, so that's it. We're gonna go ahead and wrap up this episode. Thank you again for listening. Thank you guys all for your support. Just to let you know, we do have a GoFundMe out there. I don't want to, keep asking to dig into people's pocketbooks. But if you like what you're hearing and you want to hear more, I mean, you guys have already helped out so much. It's been a great blessing when I saw that, hey, we actually have enough to host this show for a whole year without having to worry about it. And so we'd like to get better microphones for some of the guys and better cameras for some of the guys. Like to get a second mixer so that I don't have to be here every time we do the show, that somebody else would be able to, run the mixer and whatnot. And so if the Lord leads you, the Lord loves cheerful givers. Please consider giving us something. Not before you give to your local church, but and if you wanted to, if you had something extra, every dollar, every nickel, every quarter helps out. We're trying to reach $500 to get some stuff and to make it a little bit better. Hopefully be able to get some T-shirts or something and go in the future, some mugs, whatnot. I don't know what we'll do. But as the Lord leads. And so just wanted to thank all you guys. Thank you guys, gentlemen, for making the show a success this evening and coming prepared and everybody doing their due diligence. Brother Justin, I apologize for skipping over you.
I'll remember that when I get a text saying release the Kraken.
Yes.
The Kraken was gift.
Let's end on that. The Kraken. Okay, people are probably wondering, what does the Kraken mean? Well, Justin.
That's for next show.
Okay, well,
Cliffhanger.
Save it for the introduction next time.
If you want to know where it came from.
Yeah.
Next time.
The seat you're sitting in is free, but you only need the edge.
We've completely reduced ourselves to absurdity. So with that said, hey, good night, folks. Thank you for being on the show and tuning in for our 6 listeners. I think we were up to 9 at one point. We're making headway. Yeah, so praise God for that, and hopefully we'll see you next week. Everybody wave goodbye. This is where we turn it off.
Free from the law, happy condition. Jesus has bled, and there is mission.